Okay, so we're talking about the Inyan Avodas HaBerurim and the big Mile. That's the whole Avodah. Well, Kavon is Avodas HaBerurim, and the parallel to that within the person, the whole process of eating, which is a process of refinement, and in that process, the expulsion, the rejection of the unrefined. So, where does this aliyah happen? It's in Avodas HaTefillah. Avodas HaTefillah is the battle by which the h'tשכ dusha, in other words, all our engagements, it comes out to there's two things that are required to elevate the h'tשכ dusha. Obviously, the first thing is as we engage the world, we do so guided by Torah and L'Shem Shemayim, that goes without saying. But their aliyah happens in our tefillah. In our tefillah, as we attach ourselves to the Eibush and we ascend the sulam, the ladder, so the h'tשכ dusha that are part of us, part of our baggage, as it were. And be'emes, they're more than just part of our baggage, because baggage you acquire, and the term baggage actually implies something foreign. But all the h'tשכ dusha that we elevate, it's all b'hashgacha pratis, because our neshama has a shaykhis to those h'tשכ dusha, dafke, which is why they come our way. So when we are ma'ila, when we connect ourselves, we are connecting the h'tשכ dusha that are part of our shlichus and part of our neshama. That bread is eaten by the sword, that's the h'tשכ dusha elevated through the avodah of tefillah. He's alluding to Becharbi, V'kashti, that Yaakov said that he acquired Shechem with his bow and his sword. So his sword is tefillah, and both are tefillah, actually. Like bow is bakosha, is also tefillah. At any rate, so he went into all ariches that this tefillah is the isboninus. First of all, the pasuk, right? Achalti yadi im devoshi. I ate the cane with the honey. So thinking of the cane or the tree, yadi or forest, same. Yud ayin reish as dirandum lokalat say yad is what the union of Avodas HaMalachim. So tefillah is, he says he consumed it, he ate it. She says, Shirashirim. So this is this bonus. This is this bonus in the Avodas HaMalachim, and the fact that the Nefesh Habamis comes from the Mishmari Ifanim, from the residual of the Ifanim. So this is called Achila, because the Nefesh Habamis, it's Shoirish. It's an allusion to its Shoirish, but it's referring to it. Achalti, I'm consuming, I'm elevating my Nefesh Habamis. That's what Achalti is Yari means. And that's so the Isboninus in Oz Yiramno Kalatse Yohar, as it were, Isboninus in the whole Avodah described in Birchas Krishma of the Srofim, Be'ikir, and the Ifanim. I wouldn't say Be'ikir, but this, because he just mentions the Srofim, I think, here. And the Ifanim and the whole arichas that we learned, is the beginning of the first chapter of his base. And thinking of im devoshi with my honey, with the sugar, the honey, so that thinking of tainug, and that's the bitl of nefesh lekis, and that's not a bitl of iskafia, that's not the war, but nefesh lekis naturally has a tainug in the likus. And the point being, the Nefesh Habamis should be mashpia on Nefesh Habamis. The Nefesh Habamis should also have this gishmak and tainug in a likus. But before that is the pasuk Arisi Moiri. I gathered my myrrh. Moiri, myrrh is Malashim Merirus. So before davening this Emdim Nispal Alamatech Kebedrash, the person shouldn't stand in preparation for tefillah, other than out of a literally a heavy head. That's the of Meridus and Shifas, Rashi says. So this way, in the words of the Maimon, all the Inyanim built it Ritzoyim, and that hold us back in the Avodas HaTefillah, become this battle, through this bittul, this tshuva. And this is the tshuva of merirus. It's kind of a tshuva of regret and in bitterness. And that is the achana. That's the achana for actual tefillah, which is the inyan of yari and dvashing, this abundance and the tainug, and the gishmak in delight in serving Hashem. Conclusion that the whole inyan of tefillah is like the idea of eating, as we explained before, birur. He's elevating himself and all that is part of him, the h'tשכ kedusha, through avodas tefillah. Yeah. Then we said, in the same way it is within a person, this was the next paragraph. Likewise, binyan ha'olamus, namely, during the week, the olamus are in a state of yerida. Olamus meaning bia, mixture of good and bad. But Shabbos is vaychul hashemayim v'aretz v'chol tzvom, that all of the olamus have an aliyah in olam atzilus, and that's Kabbalah Shabbos. I mean, actually, the capital which they bring, it's mentioned. It's in Tzadik Vav also, in Chavtes and Tzadik Vav. 3 times Havel Hashem. I said it was a mistake, it's not. Just another capital. Havel Hashem, prepare unto Hashem. 3 times it's mentioned in the Friday night Tefillah, which is the idea of the Gimel Olamus. Concluding with Ishtachval Hashem B'Hadras Kodesh, that's the complete bittul of Olam Atzilus. Bow to Hashem in the resplendence of holiness, or the place of holiness. So that's where it is in Olam as Bechlal. The same is also true in Atzilus Gufa in Sfiris, that Malchus Atzilus during the week it descends. Ragleha Yerdis Maves. The pasuk says her feet, she referring to Malchus, descends to death, which is Biyah, where the kus is concealed. In order to elevate that, and then on Shabbos, V'takan Beit Laila V'titeref Levesa, describing the avodah of Malchus Datzilus, as it were, which is really Neshamas Yisrael, that she gets up in the middle of the night. This is Ne'ilam Biyah, and she gives teref. She gives teref means snatched food. Again, the idea of the snatched nitzutzik to her household, referring to Zohar Atzilus. That aliyah, that's the aliyah of Malchus and Atzilus. Okay, that's a wrap. So through this bir of an aliyah, this causes and elicits an amshach of tainuk. Hashem is the light. Furthermore, Elashat tainuk shenimshach mitzad avodas haberurim u'tainuk elin yoser. This tainuk that the Eibishter has from the avodah of a yid is greater than that tainuk shemitzad gemara isavos, the tainuk of the completion of creation, which was the first tainuk. What does it say about that? All that he did. Toiv me'oid means tainuk. What's dam toiv? The Eibishter's delight and pleasure at the conclusion of creation. But that, of course, is all the stage. The real tainuk is the avodah of the yid. The tainuk of the result of the avodah of the sabirurim is higher still. Base Gimel. Yeah, we're all good. Tainuk spreads literally in all of the faculties, all of the conscious faculties. And when tainuk is present, so it expands all of the koiches, illustrates. For example, it's something that would answer often to queries about where to learn, that a bacha would write. A person should always learn in the place where his heart desires. It's seichel. You should go. One would think that the place should be where there's the best curriculum, the best teacher, the best purely academic consideration. Yet Chazal say no. The real consideration is where his heart is drawn. Shechofetz, desiring a tainug, is in a kasher, yeshli tainug by seichel, because when he has a tainug, as a year, gilu a seichel, but take if you're Lcho. So the seichel is revealed more intensely, more successfully. That's true of seichel. Even though midas are justified on their own, this is a desirable thing, a likable thing, or a fearful thing. Chesed gvura, gambali tainug. Nonetheless, we see Mikamokim Gambam Yeshishpashto Satainug there too, to be effective, it's Dafke when it draws on the Tainug, which illustrates interestingly. Find by Avram, whose inyan is Chesed. His inyan is the mid of Chesed, not Tainug. That's his overt identity. What we find, however, if when he didn't have the hood in Mashpia, when they made it very hot, he was pained. That's the reason in Pashtus. Why didn't the angels come as angels, outright angels? Because it was a twofold achievement. Is also to appease him. They should be able to do Bachnosas Olcher. The Chur and the movements are understood. So what's the chesed? So someone's in need, so you need to give to provide that need. That's chesed. So why is he upset? Why is he pained? One would think it would be in such a state, in such a way. And the sum of mashpia is mashpia. There's no one in need right now, so chesed is not activated. So why is he in pain? In pain that he couldn't be mashpia. Answer is, it's not just the chesed, it's his gishmak, it's his metzias. The fish that's because overtly this is an act of chesed, is a kind, wonderful, giving person, but it's really there's a ha'ara, he expresses here, a reflection, a glimmer of tainug in that fulfills him as a person. And therefore, since that tainug is invested there, so then when the midah is blocked because no one to do chesed to, as a yef shalisis pashas tainug, then his tainug doesn't find expression. If the person's tainug is not expressed, is bottled up, where his pleasure lies, or his gishmak lies, therefore he's in pain. Of course, pain is the opposite of tainug. Clear? Now a hard-hitting example, friends. Not so common for them as my mother, and that is Moishe b'shach chesed. And just like we're talking about the mid of chesed, it's also true of a cruel person. When is he cruel? When there's another fellow that in his mind is deserving of his harsh treatment. It's not the midah, it's him. He's the problem. I'm just reminded of a very terrible thing a teacher said to a student. The student told me, this person told me, decades later, and he was still hurt by it, although he made a kind of a joke of it. This is not to emulate, but it just brings out the point. He says to, in front of all the kids in the class, the teacher, yeshiva, a big Talmud Chacham, mind you. He says to him, I said, what is it, Moishe? He said, everybody has a problem. There's no person doesn't have a problem. He says, but you don't have any problems. You know why? You are the problem. So, this is, God forbid, not a model, but that's what he's saying over here. His achzori is not, it's a reaction to a situation that antagonizes him or whatever. He's a ish achzori, and therefore, well, Lcho, so he has his tainug there. Loizel b'vat, because he's cruel. He just delights in cruelty. So it's not just merely a matter of that when he's engaged in an act of tormenting his fellow, he has tainug in it. He's alone and there's nobody to torment. He's not happy. There's nobody to make miserable. And he starts seeking out ways. How can he make his friend miserable? He searches for it. Why? Because there's ishach zori. It does not saying every matzav is this way, but there is such a matzav where there's a tainug in the midas. And I said before in the seichel. In Hara 31, I didn't see it, but he sends us to a maamar of the Frierdiker Rebbe. It looks like speaks about this at length. Page 33 in Kuf Lamed Daled and so on. And there you'll see further sources. And the dogma, the parallel is with Bnei Elikim. It's malachim. It's the destructive malachim. Shinyonam hu lahara. Their whole mission is lahara. And therefore they accuse and they seduce and they accuse. First they seduce, then accuse. In order that later they should be able to take revenge on the person, see what he did, and punish him. Bnei Elikim, the pasuk is referring to is a pasuk in Eov, where Eov's whole test began. The pasuk, the whole Eov begins. It's at the very beginning. Perek Beis, where the Satan, the Bnei Elikim came before the Eibishter and said, "This Eov that you are so proud of, let's put him to the test." And the Eibishter agrees. It's very graphic language there. Eov. This whole dialogue between the Eibishter and the Satan and the Bnei Elikim, these angels. Akoponim. So this is it's a Shoresh L'mayla. This whole tainug in Achzorius is the Bnei Elikim. What's Moishe b'Hamidus? It's not just the midas, but all of a person's faculties. Yeshba is Pashta Satan. He's actually stated it as a statement of fact. I just said a moment ago, that it doesn't have to be this way. You know, a person should always go learn, and welcome to be chofetz, but it doesn't always happen. You go where your parents send you, and the kid doesn't want to be there. So that's so there's no timing there. The kid's talking about matzliach. But he says yeshba, when you're doing things voluntarily, there's got to be some element of time where you just would not be doing it. It doesn't start with the mid, it doesn't start with the seichel. It starts with, at some level, order could be a stronger or lesser order of, that's me, that's where I find myself, that's where my fulfillment lies. Not today, tomorrow it'll lead to time. So it's true also of Maise. Hemshech to the previous Maamar, right? All of them, there's the spreading to some degree of the tainik. Otherwise, if he's not forced, he wouldn't be doing it. Why is he working? Because there's a tainik in making money, so he's working very hard. But what drives it all is tainik. The Gemara says, "Uchlese the mechuze ile of the chalshi," which means the inhabitants of Mechuzah, they don't work, they're weak. The Gemara says they're about a person who hires laborers, the Rabbi says, and they get the job done. He hired them for the day. So he can make them do other work. He can make them do work of equal, lighter work, certainly work of equal. But if he doesn't have it, he can't make them do harder work. Then he hired them for. But he has to pay them. Here's the interesting halacha. He has to pay them as if they worked for the rest of the day, even though they're not. So the Gemara says, why not pay them for, okay, you hired them, but just you pay them like the minimum wage. What does he have to pay them for that which he hired them for, which they'd already completed for the rest of the day, for the rest of the hours of the day. The Gemara says we're talking about the people of Mechuzah, who they were laborers. They carried water and wood, lumber. They were porters. If they don't work, they're weak. It's not a tainik for them not to work. You're not doing them a favor by not working. So they have to pay them the full wage.
Like people who exercise and they don't exercise, they become tired.
Yeah. And because so this is an example. Even Koyach HaMaisa, exercise is a good example because that's purely voluntary. Why? Because it's hard work, but the gishmak in the exercise. So of the cholshi, even Koyach HaMaisa, if they don't work, they're weakened. Why? Because the tainug is in their work. He says that they're porters, or they dig, like the Rambam says. The Rebbe's Pirush in both Rashi and Rambam, the avoid is only action. Which is very low. Action is separate from the person himself. You do an act, you walk away, you leave your mark. Even there, this is the most external expression of the person. If it's done voluntarily, there is tainuk there. If he doesn't work, he's weak because it's gishmak. He feels unfulfilled. And that's the tsar that he feels weak. He's not physically weak, it doesn't work. But he feels unfulfilled, and therefore it's sepach tainuk. So this is all the lower level of tainuk is describing now, the level of tainuk that's mispashet in the koiches for the actual work. He said in the end of the previous oz, but the tainuk of the avodas habirurim, as opposed to the tainuk of creation, finishing the job, but the tainuk of a yid, the Rebbe has in the yid's avodah, this is much higher tainuk. Let's begin. Mash mispash b'cholakoich u'serak ha'aretz satanik b'lvad. We described till now is not the pure revelation of the tainuk. He's grunting while he's working. It's a order of tainuk. The Moshe l'maylu hu k'mishakoso. The dugma l'maylu is the pasuk says v'yadam ki miskol asher asim v'nitayv ma'od. Taka the says tainuk in the job, however, showing his pashtus satanik b'lvad. It's not etzem tainuk. It's only a giloy. Tainuk shemitzad inabirurim etzem tainuk, but the tainuk mitzad avodah that elicits the etzem tainuk. To explain further in detail, the tainuk shemispasha b'chol hakoiches u'rak ha'olavad. The tainuk that's invested in the hakoiches is only ha'orah. And therefore we see when it comes to ha'orah, giloy, there's different degrees of tainuk invested in the conscious faculties. The delight that the pleasure has in the euphoric moment of tainuk, of chachma, the discovery is not the same as the tainuk in binah. Actually, sometimes it says the tainuk in binah is greater. The gishmak and understanding the pratim, but it's certainly different. The giloy, it's deeper in binah, but the giloy of it is in chachma. In that moment of discovery, a person that this problem he's struggling with, and all of a sudden, boom, the person has the epiphany of the solution. It's tremendous tainuk. And they're not the same as the tainuk of bin. It's a different kind of tainuk. The koshkin tainuk shebekeiach ha'maisa, and certainly they're incomparable to the tainuk in keiach ha'maisa from actions. Because I'm only talking ha'orah. Never it's invested in the various faculties according to their level. And therefore, the level of tainuk is divided in terms of its investure according to the particular faculty. So likewise, the mile of other on the mile of so likewise, David says tainuk in creation. Even though the Tainug is higher than the actual highest, the actual active creation, the life force is only that which is mukhrach, necessary and absolutely tailored to the actual creation. Each creation gets a very, not more or less, dose of chayis that brings it into being and creates it. But that Tainug, you say that Tainug goes beyond the limits of creation itself, the needs of creation, the boundaries of creation. The famous Torah that's the quotes. We say in Birchas Beri, the Fascist rabbis, we say we thank Hashem for creating many souls, and thank you for meeting their lacks, that which they lack. All that you created to enliven them. So there's two inyonim here, says the Torah. You give all that they lack, and if you wouldn't have it, they would lack it. And what's that? Their very existence. That's the chayis. That's not tainuk. That's the creative process. And moreover, the things that you provide for life. But however, you give more than that, and you give chayis, that's more than chesreinon. In other words, he's asking, what's the difference? Life. So there's two levels. There's a life which meets the chesed, and then there's chayis, which is not about meeting the chesed. We'll be thanking Hashem for all of the things that we delight in. We don't need for survival. So therefore, chayis that's the first level. All that is filling the lack, without which it couldn't exist. That's the chayis, the life force that the Eibishter invests in creation that's limited to the creation. But oinig is a great ashpah that preils an expansion that the Eibishter has as a result of the completion of creation. She's Berliel bottom Shatainig Pale is I said before, when a person has Tainug in what he does, then the Keichas are expanded and work on a whole altered level. When you know Ashidus, and this is wealth, not simply addressing needs without which survival would not be possible. Still, having said all of this, this is only ha'orah. That's the Rebbe looked at all creation and said and revealed that that's the Tov Ma'od. Therefore, it's not the same as the way it's best in Chachma as it is in Bina Canal. But the avoid the mitzad diburim is etzem atanya. We learned in the previous Maamar, if you recall, a little bit of a stira, because there he said that etzem atanya, the two levels of Shabbos, right? There's the Shabbos that comes as a result of the completion of the work, and that is k'relo avidas habirurim. That's the aliyah. That's the Friday night. By Chalul Likim. That's the birur in it. And then Shabbos day, or you also pointed out, it's also in both night and day, is the etzem hataynog. At the end, you said in Torah also, you see Mitzrayim is the defeat of Mitzrayim. I think in Torah is etzem hataynog. And then he asked, but Torah is also the of birurim. Yeah, lahavdu ben atomid ben atohir. So he says there, it's not about, it's about the elevation. So we have an answer there in a way, because he says there, it's not about birurim in the sense of defeating, crushing Mitzrayim, but it's about its elevation in Kedusha. But then he adds another point, and Be'emes is not even about that, but Torah is about the Gishmak that the Eibishter has in the Yid. So he's not spelling it out here, but we're just, that's an expansion of the point over here. When he says here, is the Etzem HaTainug. So we learned in the previous mind, what's the Etzem HaTainug? The world is elevated. It's you. You elevated the world. So the world's complete. You're complete. The Tainug is in the Yid. Just right, the previous mind. Let's go a bit further. Here we should go further. Or, okay, we'll finish the ice. So this is etzem hatanik. We say every Friday night. We say like this: V'iyu shakyu di ilana, and he waters the tree. The tree being a metaphor for the actually the spheres of Atzilus. Kamaya the ashki li'ilana, like water waters the tree. V'israbe bahu shakyu, and the tree grows, expands as a result of this watering. And then the next statement, and then he says again, the ashkili the bahu neviu, he waters the tree with that fountain, bahu neviu, and this fountain is chaim l'gufa, gives life to the tree, the body of the tree. No, here the gufa means the guf, like the neshama gives life to the guf. Akoponim, there's two kinds of watering here. One is visrabi bahu shakir, it expands with this nourishment, and the other one is chaim l'guf. Shehem beis b'chinas hanal. These are the two levels. In chaim l'guf, life for the body, al derechin l'hachish. That's the hachish b'brichas spirit the foshes. This is the Amshach of Tainug, however, it's limited. It's limited. Each level gets, the Tainug is proportionate to that level. As you illustrate, the Tainug in Chacham is not the same as in Bina, as in Maisa. But what he said early in the pasuk, if he is shakili lana, and he waters the tree, and he says is what? So that it expands from this nourishment. So that is the etzem hataynu. Which has no limit at all. Let's conclude, and we'll expand Mr. Shem on this next piece. Nimshech is drawn through the kav. The kav l'chayre ends in Atzilus, and Atzilus takes over, as it were, from there. It's a whole new Amshacha. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. The Moishe kav mistayim Atzilus, even though the kav ends in Atzilus, it starts in itself and ends in Atzilus. And the kav yesh begamchin is pnimius hakav, but there's the pnimius hakav. Externally, doesn't extend further, but the pnimius, instead of pnimius obligable, by nimshach etzem hataynu. But all to say, we'll talk about it. Just push it to say that the etzemat, that in the Olam is beyond the Avodah V'Yid and Avodah Saberudi Lamata. Here the etzem hataynu is found. Dafke. Okay, we'll revisit that tomorrow.